Hello everybody, I'm Ron, and my call sign is W7DOA, Whiskey 7 Delta Oscar Alpha. So far in the DMR series, we've talked about what DMR is, how to get the information, and how to program some channels into our radio. In this video, we want to talk about how we can listen to more traffic than just the single channel that we're on. A couple different ways to go about doing that. There is a scan list that we can program. There is a receive group list that we can program, and then there is a digital monitor mode, and we'll talk about each one of those and the limitations and challenges and the benefits to each one of them, and then you can make the decision as to which one you want to use. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into our software and start looking at what we have going on in here. So far we have our channels programmed up, and we have 7 channels. We have them in a zone. We do not have a scan list yet, and so we will work with that. Before we get too far along though, there are a couple things that we're going to change in our optional settings, and that is our key functions. PF1 short key, that's just a short press on the key, and then PF2 are the 2 keys that we are going to use. And if you look at the radio, I don't know if you can see that there's a push to talk button, and then there's 2 buttons down below there. Those are 1 and 2. Those will be the 2 buttons that we're using for this video. You can of course program them to any of these keys that you have here. The first one that we're going to do is we are going to change the first key, number 1, to digital monitor. There it is right there. So we will change the first button, we will change to digital monitor, and the second one we will change to scan. That sets up our buttons for what we will be doing in the future in the rest of this video. So the first thing we want to do is talk about scan lists, and we will go ahead and open up a scan list. We will call this scan list Montana. This is our Montana scan list. Now keep in mind we haven't put in nearly all the channels that are available in Montana. This is just for the video demonstration. So we are going to put all of these in, and we move them over just the same way we did in our zones. We highlight one, we press the arrow key, and we will move them all over. I will not move over the parrot channel, because if I am on parrot, I want to use that channel specifically, and I don't want to monitor a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're going to put that in there, or we will not put the parrot in there, just these channels here. Down below, there is a priority select that we can do. Typically, I just turn priority channels off because I'm not using this in any way that it's critical that I hear a specific radio transmission. And it just turns into being a little bit confusing. But you could do one channel that is a priority channel. You could do a second priority channel. Or you could do 2 priority channels. I will just turn them off basically. The next line down is our revert channel. So as you're in the scan and it's scanning through the channels, how do you get back to what you want to do? By default it's at selected, which means that whatever channel you are on, when you push the push to talk button, that's the channel that it will transmit on. Selected plus talkback is what I use a lot. Basically, if there is nothing else going on and I push the push to talk button, it will go to the channel that I have selected, that I started the scan with. If there is some traffic that I want to answer, it will hold on that channel for a couple seconds, and I have a few seconds to push the push to talk button and answer back on that channel that I last heard. If I don't push the push to talk button right away, it drops back into scan, and then it will transmit on my selected channel. So I use that one quite a bit. And these look back times are for your priority channels, how often it looks back to that priority channel to see if there's any traffic on it. And then the dropout and delay is only used for analog channels. So how long it stays before it drops back into scan, basically. So we have just made a scan list for all of our channels that we have programmed so far. Let's do a second scan list, and we will call this analog. And in it, we are only going to put the 2 analog channels that we created. Same thing, priority channels off, and revert channel is selected plus talkback. We'll click OK, and we will make a third one, and we will call this digital. And in there, we will only put in our DMR digital channels. Again, I will not put the parrot in there. Priority channels off, selected plus talkback. So those are the scan lists, and those are the channels that are in those scan lists. What does that mean, and how do we use those? So we'll go back into our channel section, and we will open the first one, which is the 2 meter calling frequency channel. And here in our list it says scan list. This does not add this channel to the scan list, and I want to be very clear about this. This line does not add this channel to the scan list. What this does is this says if you are on this channel and you initiate scan from this channel, which scan list should I use? And so let's do Montana. We'll scan all of the channels if we were initiating a scan from this channel. We'll click OK, and we will go to the analog repeater channel, and this scan list again will only select which scan list it uses if we start scan from here. So we'll select that to analog, and we will click OK, and then we will go into our digital channels, and we will say we want to use the digital scan list. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we have that set up in our programming. We will kind of just do one programming push to the radio a little bit later in the video and check out how I can't even talk. Check out how that all works. All right, so the next thing that we want to talk about is our receive group call list right here. If it is down in the digital section, and if we select that, there's absolutely nothing there. So let's go ahead and create one. And we are going to call this, let's move all of these out for right now. Let's call this receive group Dylan. We'll do Southwest Montana, just so that we're not using names over and over and over again so we get confused. The software doesn't care, just so that we don't get confused. And in this receive group list, you'll notice that parrot is not available to us because parrot is not a group call, it is a private call. So let's put all of these over into that group the same way. Highlight one, push the arrow over key until they're all over here, and now we have a digital receive group call list. We'll click OK. Let's do another one just for demonstration. We'll call this one, I don't know, test. And in there we will only put in the 2 MPRG channels. That's it. Okay, so now we have 2 different receive group lists. How do we use those? Again, we go back to our channel. MPRG1 has a scan list in it. MPRG2 does not have a scan list in it. Now you can use scan lists as well as receive groups, but they don't necessarily work at the same time, and that is a little bit different. So in MPRG2, we will say Southwest Montana is our receive group. This is where it gets a little bit different. In the scan list, when the radio is scanning, and we'll show this on the screen a little bit later, but as the radio is scanning, it goes through each single channel in order, and it's looking for activity on that channel. What the receive group list does changes how your radio receives this channel. Right now it's set to receive MPRG2, and that's the only talk group this channel will listen to. If we change this down here to this receive group list, it will now listen to or unmute the squelch and present the audio on any of the talk groups that are in this receive group call list. So even though the channel says MPRG2, we will actually hear any of these talk groups that are on that time slot. All right, so the caveat to that, or the problem with that, is you may be on MPRG2, you have a receive group, and somebody starts talking on, let's say, Bozeman-Gallatin Valley, and you hear that, and you go, oh, I want to talk to that guy, and you key up the radio and you talk back. This will talk back on MPRG2, not the talk group that you heard. And so you kind of have to pay attention to your screen and see when that comes through. It will tell you what talk group they're on, and you kind of have to pay attention to that and move to that channel in order to answer them back. So that is a little bit of a challenge with the receive groups. However, it is much faster because the channel is listening to all of those talk groups. It's much faster than having the scan list, where the scan list has to go through each individual channel to listen for traffic. And one of the things that I will say about this radio is I believe that this radio has a fairly slow scan list in it, considering it is technically a business application radio, even though we're using it for ham radio. All right. So the next thing that we want to talk about is digital monitor mode. And there is no place in the software other than to turn it on and off that there are any settings for it. So what digital monitor mode means is that your radio doesn't filter traffic by talk groups. If it is on that frequency, it will listen to it. And so you might have a channel that has a talk group assigned to it, and it will listen to and hear that channel. If you have receive groups, you have the talk group that's assigned to that channel that it will talk on and listen to, as well as a handful of additional ones that you want to listen to. However, if you put it into digital monitor mode, it will listen to any talk group that is on that frequency. And so you will hear in their talk groups that you maybe don't have programmed into your radio. So that could be a challenge, that you'll hear stuff that you're unable to answer back to. We'll demonstrate that a little bit. And just to clarify that, in the Anytone radios, they call it digital monitor mode. In some of the other brands of radios, they call it promiscuous mode. And when we get to the screen level here, I'll show you another thing that Anytone does that some of the other radios don't. Some of them do, and that is it will do a digital monitor on a specific time slot, or it will do digital monitor on both time slots. Some of the other radios that have promiscuous mode, it's just both time slots. So let's go ahead and get this programmed up, and we can show you on the screen what we're doing. And just like how we programmed it every other time, we check our COM port, still good, and we write to the radio and just the other data right now. And away it goes. And it is complete. Doesn't take very long to write that data. The radio is rebooting, and it will be just a second here before it comes back up. And here we are, now back up and running, and we are on the 2-meter calling frequency for Dylan. And before I get too carried away, I'm going to make a couple little changes here in the radio. We're going to go back into the software, and this is just simply so that you can see what's going on the screen a little bit better. If we go into the optional settings, bear with me 1 second here. Okay, we're in the optional settings here, and we will go to the display tab, and here it says channel name color is orange. We're going to change that to yellow. What's the other one? White. Okay, so we're going to change that one to yellow, and hopefully it will show up on the screen just a little bit better. We will write that to the radio, and we will be back in just a second. And our radio's booting up. And it takes a second here for the radio to boot up. And so now when we look at this screen, it's a little bit better color, and you can see the 2-meter calling frequency. So our top button, if I remember right, I'll go back into the settings here real quick. Key function. The top one is our digital monitor. Digital monitor single slot, digital monitor double slot, and then off. The bottom one is our scan button. So we press that, and it starts scanning. And you can kind of see how slow that scan is. It scans pretty slow. And so it has to go all the way through that before it gets back to the channel. And you might miss the first part of a conversation, or if it is a really short transmission, you might miss it entirely, especially if your scan list is fairly long. So we push it again, and it comes out of scan back to where we started. So if we change over to a channel MPRG1, and let's look back at our MPRG1 channel here. MPRG1 does not have a scan list, but it does have a scan list. It does not have a receive group. So if we initiate scan from MPRG1, you will notice that it is no longer scanning the analog channels. It is only scanning the digital channels, because that's the scan list that we put in it. Mauer Mountain had the, so we'll go back to the Mauer Mountain channel, and we'll initiate scan from there. And you'll notice that it is only scanning the 2 analog channels, because that is the scan list that we put in there. All right. There's nothing really to show you on the receive group list. If we were to go to MPRG2, it will listen to MPRG2 as well as all of the other digital talk groups that we put in there. And there's nothing really to demonstrate on there other than it works. I'm not hearing any other traffic on the repeater right now. So we'll go back to MPRG1. MPRG1 does not have a receive group call list on it. It does have the scan list on it. So we'll come out of scan, and we can press the digital monitor single slot. So I have to look at my screen here. Actually, I don't. MPRG1 is on time slot 2. And so in the single slot mode, it will listen for any other traffic on time slot 2, no matter what the talk group is. But if we remember, going back to the software or the website that we looked at, the repeater owner has requested that only MPRG1 be on time slot 2, so it's not likely that we'll hear anything else. If we press that button again, it now says double slot, and so what double slot means is it will listen for traffic on time slot 1 or time slot 2. However, it will not listen to analog traffic, just digital traffic. So you could do double slot monitor and a scan list, and that might work out fairly well. I'm not sure how well that would work out, but you could try it. All right, so I'm going to put my glasses on here. You can't really see it. Kind of got a glare in the window there. If we do single slot, and it doesn't show up very well, but up here in the corner right next to the H, there is a little red thing with one bar on it. Yeah, you can't see it. And if I did double slot, then it has two little bars next to the little mic, the little speaker icon, and that tells you whether you are listening on one slot or both slots or not at all. So that kind of is the overall gist of scanning, of receive groups, and digital monitor. And just remember, digital monitor is the term that Anytone uses. Some of the other radios out there use the term promiscuous mode. Either way, it's about the same thing. Anyway, that is it for this video. The next one that we're going to do, let's talk about digital contact lists. And down here in this digital contact list area down here on towards the bottom, it is 1 to 200,000, and like I mentioned before, that is 200,000 contacts that I do not want to do by hand. So we will talk about how to download that contact list from a reliable source and how to import it into our radio and program it into our radio so that it will work for us. Anyway, until then, my name is Ron, call sign W7DOA. Stay safe out there, 7-3.